This
Okay, okay,
conference will now be recorded.
okay. Hey, good evening, guys. Let's get started. Um, all right, this is session two. Let's take a few minutes to recap of what we have learned in the last meeting, last session. Um, so in the last session, we were discussing about what is the Apex programming and how we can, what are the different ways of developing the Apex program, like through the developer console or through the Eclipse. And if you can share your information, then I can share the plugin, whatever, with Eclipse, so you can start using the Eclipse. And the other thing is what are the things that we saw last session was what are the data types, what are the data types available in Apex programming? It could be integer, boolean, long, string, and we have gone through the very basic things of with the string you can do some string concatenation, or what are the access modifiers that is available, public and all those things. We still need to talk about with the sharing of public and all those things. So that will be coming in future sessions. So I will cover all those topics. And we were discussing about how you can create the Apex class and how you can invoke those Apex class, how you can create an object, or how you can create an Apex class from your debug console. We can even invoke from the static context, and also how to pass an argument to the method, and how to print the debug statement, and all those things we have been saying it. So these are the things that we covered. And now we know what is a class, what is a object, how to create a class, and all those things. Like you see it here. So this is the class, and this is the method, and this is we were discussing extensively about return type, and what is the return type the method can have, and what is static, and what is the arguments, and all those things. And we were testing it from the debug window. This is execute the code from the anonymous window. All right. So today, now since we know what is the class and what is the object and all that, the next thing that we need to talk about is little advanced of related to the objects. How you can manipulate the object, all those. Okay. So as I said before, open up another notepad here. Okay. So when we're talking about the data types, we have been talking about several data types, right? One of the important data types that I told you was a test object. It's like nothing but a Salesforce object. Whenever we are dealing with the object, we always call them as a test object. So there are two types of objects in the Salesforce. Two types of objects in the Salesforce. When we're talking about two types of objects, what are those? That could be standard objects and custom objects. You might know what is the standard object and what is the custom object. So so what are called the standard objects? The objects that are available within the Salesforce itself that comes out of what are the standard objects. We can have account or opportunity or lead, case. So all of these contacts. So all of these are called the standard objects. You can create your own custom objects. So those are called the custom objects. You can, if you see it here in this, so admin, you can go to the setup and you can see the object manager. The object manager, you can see the list of objects that are available. So when you see my screen here, so these are all whatever asset activity, all those things are all the standard objects. I have created even a custom object. If you see here, there's something like energy audit, all those things are custom objects. Okay. All right. So we can create our own custom objects with a list of fields. Each object will have its own field. So for example, if you say accounts, if you take an account, that's going to have, this is the object, and that will have the list of fields, right? The fields will be like, name, like address, phone number, something like that. So these are the fields, right? So we can create our own custom object with all the list of fields. So these are called the standard objects and the custom objects. Right? The next step, what do we need to do with those objects is we are going to do the DML operation. The next is set up programming. Like now since we know how to create a object or how to create an affect class and all those things, the next thing is like to move to the next advanced level of dealing with those objects. Like those are called how are we going to manipulate? How are we going to manipulate the record? So that is called the data DML language. Like it's called the data manipulation language. All right. So what are the data manipulation language? Like we are going to manipulate the data. What does it mean? Like when you manipulate the data, like we know what are the objects, right? When you're talking about this, like when you're talking about this, like let's go to the sales app. So when you're talking about this, like leads, opportunity, task, whatever this that I'm saying, like an object. Let's take an example of account. So if you see here, all of these, like all of these accounts that whatever you see here, these are all the records of this object. Like these are the fields, like account name, account site, all those things are going to be the fields. Like the next advanced level of, like if you want to create, like if you ask admin to create like a record, what they're going to do is they're going to click here and then they're going to create a new account, and then there's going to be a form. This is nothing but the page layout. Like whatever the record type that we create, like we assign the page layout to the profile. Whatever the user, the profile, like the user belongs to, each user will have some profile, and whatever the profile is assigned, that will open up the page layout, and we will fill up the form. Okay, so this is the admin way of doing things. The administrator will create one account and then create next one and all those things. Okay, so how are we going to do with the program? So we are here to learn the development. Like how are we going to do with the programming? So that is what it is called. That's why we have to use the DML language. That is called the data manipulation language. Right? Okay. So we have to use the DML. What is the purpose of the DML? Use DML to insert, update, or delete records. Insert, update, and delete records. So these are the things that we'll be doing with the DML. Okay. So with the DML, we can create the records. Okay. There may be a question coming in. Okay. So Karthik, like how many records that we can use with the DML, right? Well, you can create one record at a time. You can create one record at a time, or you can do the bulk operations. Meaning you can do the bulk. You can do it in the bulk. For example, I had the real-time scenarios, like one of your sales reps coming and saying, or like one of your HR department, they're coming and saying that, hey, you know what, guys, we recently acquired the company, and we need to bring all their accounts into the Salesforce. I have like 100,000 records of employees. I have whatever the company that we acquired, they have like 100,000 of accounts. We need to bring all those things from the existing system to Salesforce. And then as a technical lead or architect, they'll be working on the solution, and they'll be asking okay, so what is the system that you are using? Like they may be saying the older system, they may be using something else, some other CRM or some other applications other than Salesforce. Okay, in that case, the next question would be okay, right? Well, we will import those data. What is the format of the data? How you can give us the format of the data? They'll say that usually they say that hey, we can give it in the spreadsheet. Any application should generate the data. Basically, should extract the data. Like what I'm saying is, so this is like going to be the origin, and like I would say source system and the destination. the destination is the one that we're talking about, the Salesforce. And whatever the source that we're talking about here is non-Salesforce. But this has the data, like, So here they have the data. So this system, they may say that, okay, so they may give in the format of XML, or they may give in the format of, it could be in the spreadsheet. They can export the data in the spreadsheet. So whenever we have the data in the format of spreadsheet or XML, so we have to write the piece of code to dump or pump the data from these sources into the Salesforce. Okay, so that there are several of tools that are available out of box, bulk uploader, all sort of things. So for example, that support the spreadsheet and all that. But that means you are aware of that. You can just export or import to the spreadsheet or CSV format or anything. You can even deduplicate them and you can import it into the Salesforce. For example, if it is in the format of XML, or if it is in the format of some other source, even it could be the app liner, HTML or whatever. XML would be the nominal way of generating the data. In that case, what you do, you go and write a piece of code to parse the XML data. Once you get the data, you can create it in the Salesforce, right? So all of these things can be done programmatically. So I'm just trying to give you an idea when these things will come in picture. Okay, since the admin is available, why don't we go and do it with the admin itself? The admin is going to be a time-consuming process. Admin can create only one record at a time. So that we have to use the DML operation. Okay, but to do the DML operations, where the data will be coming. Once you have the data, you should be able to do your coding in the DML and execute the record class or everything through the DML operation. Right. So and the source could be of any format. All you need to all you have to do is to have the data. Okay. All right. What are the things that we can do with the DML? As I said before, either you can do insert, or you can even update the existing records. Okay, so insert a new record. Whenever I say insert, there is no record. We are going to insert a new record, and we can update the existing record, or we can do the upsert. There is an upsert. You might see, you might wonder, hey, what is the upsert? What is the difference between the update and the upsert? The difference between the update and the upsert is these two things are together called the upsert. So upsert is nothing but you can insert the data and then you can update the data. The same data can be updated. So we will write a piece of code and we will go through these operations. So through all of these DML operations. We'll go through this one after another to give you an understanding of what is this DML, how can we manipulate the data, how we can do the bulk saving, and what is insert, update, delete, and all those things. Okay, so this is the upsert. All right. So what else we could do with the DML? We can even do the deletion, delete the records, and we can even undelete the records. So once you delete it, it is going to be in the Salesforce, is always going to be in the recycle bit, and then if you feel that okay, so you want to undelete the record, you can undelete the record. So in Salesforce, whenever you delete the data, it is going to be the soft delete. It's not going to be the hard delete. So when we say soft delete, it's going to be it's going to be in the recycle, and also there will be some sort of flag for each row to void the data. Meaning you can nullify the data. In other words, you can say nullify the data, which means that the data is not active. At the same time, it's not that the data is completely gone out of the database. You can still be able to retrieve the data from the database. So that is why we call it as soft delete. Hard delete means it is deleting from the database. You cannot retrieve from the database unless or until you have the backup. So it's you cannot roll back. So this is very easy to in Salesforce. It's very easy to undelete the data. So that is why they do have one of the operations called undelete the DML. And the other one is we can merge. So if you see here, as we said, the merge statement. The merge statement merges up to 3 records of the same S object. If you have a same S object, like for example, so one of the S objects will be like accounts, right? When you're talking about, we can create like multiple account objects. When you're having the similar account S objects, like S objects of type account, you can merge them all. So you can say that you can ask a question like how many objects we can merge? We can merge it up to 3 records of the same S object into one record, and we can delete the other 2 records. Okay, or else you can even like you can do the reparenting to the related records. Like if they have the related records, you can just erase them and then you can put it in the reparenting. You can do all sort of things and you can merge them and you can delete the unwanted records. Okay, so if you see the normal SQL with other databases or the relational databases like Oracle or MySQL or like SQL Server and all those things, so all of these will have this insert, update, delete. So with additional to that, unlike the other database in Salesforce, you have like upstart and delete, merge. So so when you're talking about this DMO statement, so they can either accept like one object, as I said, or when they are doing it in the bulk, we can do the. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm talking in the phone. All right, sorry, guys. Right. So when you're talking about when you're talking about the DML operations, like either you can have a single object or you can have the when you're doing the bulk, it is going to be the list of objects. Okay, we'll go through this like how we can create the bulk operations and how we can create a single record and all those things. Okay, so those are the things. One of the important things that I want to specify in the with respect to the Salesforce is when we all talked about the data type, right? So we all talked about the data type, and we are talking about the various data types like long, double, integer, decimal, date, S object, all those things, right? One of the important data types in the Salesforce is ID. There's a data type called ID. So whenever we are inserting the data into the Salesforce, each record will have its own ID. Like when I insert a record, I'll just display. I'll show you like when I insert a record, like it will always be created with an unique ID. The ID is going to be of unique. So that this is the unique key or a unique identifier of every single record in the Salesforce. Every single record in the Salesforce, we can identify it from the ID. So when system, so when you're inserting the records, like whatever the Salesforce system or the Salesforce does is like it assigns an ID to each record, and also like that is the way that the record is getting persisted, like meaning it is saved in the database, and the ID is always auto-populated on the S object variable whenever you use. Like whenever you use the DML call, like whenever you want to make a DML operation, ID will always be in the scope. Okay. You can send me in the chat window. Is it all clear so far? Like the DML operations and what is the object and what is the subject and what are the DML operations that is available and what is the data type of ID field. All right. So let's try to insert. Let's try to insert a record into the object. Okay.
I think one doubt, like S object, is it only standard objects or even custom objects also can be considered as a S object?
Custom objects can also be considered as subject.
Okay, custom as well as standard, both
as well as standard objects, yeah.
As a subject. Okay, yeah.
So say for example, and the standard objects, we know that this opportunities, lead, tasks, and all the things like the contact campaigns. These are all the standard objects, right? You want to insert the data, retrieve the data, and all those things. How about if you create your own custom object? How are we going to manipulate the data? The same operations you can do it with it. They're considered as objects. You can create an object out of those. You can create an object. You can create an object out of those things, whatever you created, and then you can manipulate the field.
Fine. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Does it make sense?
Yes, yes.
All right, cool. So let's try to create like one simple account object. Okay, let's try to create one simple account object. Let's go back to the develop console. Okay, so I'm not going to spend time here to write the methods, classes, and all that. Let's open up the anonymous window. That way, I can show you whatever I said yesterday, that code. I can tell you. So we are not going to create any of the database connections, nothing. You can literally write the code here, which means that you can manipulate the data from the database. Okay. All right. So let's take this is the object right now. I'm going to create an object out of this class, like an account, and then how do we create an object from the class? We say that in the new account. So each of this is called class. So this is the standard account equal to new account, and I'm going to say what are the fields that is available right now. How to create how to create the fields, right? I don't have to show you, but just in case, if you go here, and then to the setup, project manager, then if you see the account, you can see the account, and we do have here the fields and the relationships. So these are the fields that are available. We say field label, field name. Here is the field name. Okay, field name will be having. With additional to this, we will also have something called the API name. Okay, we'll come back to that to the next set of sessions. Forthcoming sessions will be whenever we are talking about directly calling to the API. How do we manipulate the field to the API? I'll show you. Okay, right. All right. So now we know objects, now we know the list of fields, and every time when you insert the data, you have to use the field name. Okay. So now I see I see here a name, and the other thing is one of the quite common thing is description and phone, and we can have what are other things we have? Number of employees, something like that, right? So we have the number of employees and all those things. Right. So let's try to insert the data directly to this. Let's create programmatically one record. Okay. Right. So I go to the developer console. And I'm trying to create an account. You can create you can just put X, Y, Z, whatever you want. All you need is this one. This is what it matters. Based on the class, you create an account, the object, and you can create it. Yeah. Account, and then this is the name of the field. I showed you what are the name of the field type. Name equal to my account. As an example, I'm saying. I'll say my test account, whatever. And then if you just want to, so you need to specify all of the mandatory fields here. Otherwise, it is going to go an error. Or else, you can just write. You can insert the data with the comma separated values. If you have the multiple fields, if you are going to insert a record with multiple fields, you can all insert them with the comma separated values. So for example, I'm going to insert this name and then the phone. And then I'm going to insert other records So let's try it with these two records, an example. Okay. And whenever we are trying to end the statements, it always ends with semicolon, right? And then in order to, we are trying to insert the record, right? So here what we did was we created an object, just a row with the data. And then you need to insert. That's going to be insert account. So this is to create an account object, So in the Salesforce, whenever you write a code, this is called the comment. It's no the same thing like as we do in Java or like .NET or anything. So here is where you're going to create the object, and then you're going to insert the object. So using like DML statements. All right. So and then okay, I was teaching you the data type called ID, right? Once you insert like every single record in the Salesforce will be having the ID by default. It's going to have. And one of the key thing, I don't know, like if you're aware of it or not. One of the key thing is each standard object have their own pattern of saving the ID. Like I mean, most of the trainers will not share this, but the only thing is like uh, you will get to know this only after experience with the database. Like after doing the development of like for some or few more months, then you get to know like how the data is getting represented. Like for example, account, right? Account always will start with like 001. Contact we always start with 002. Like they do have certain patterns like account, contact, opportunities will always have like 005 something. Leads will always have like 004 something like that. Okay, so this is more. I mean, this is not important to know that, but as an experienced person with the Salesforce, then you get to know. Oh, okay. As soon as you see the ID, you can tell hey, this account, this row, or like this data belongs to this account object, right? Because they are uniquely differentiating with this prefix. Okay, this is one of the tips that I want to give you. All right. So now we are creating the account object. We loaded the data and then we are trying to insert the data. So whenever I told you like it will always have the it will always have the ID of the record. All right. So let's print the ID. Print the ID of inserted record. In that case, the data type of the ID is the data type. The data type of the ID is ID. This is the data type, like string or integer. Like we used to have like integer, right? Integer or string. Similar to that, ID itself is a data type. And now I'm trying to print my account ID equal to like what is the object ACCT. So here is the object, right? ACCT dot ID. So this is what we are printing. We are going to print the ID. Now let's try to system dot debug ID. So let's try to print the ID and see what it gives. Okay. I'm going to print this ID. Okay. All right, no big deal. So that's about we are trying to create through the program. So the same thing, like if you just we'll come back to that later. Let's first try to execute this. Like now I'm going to create an account object and then insert the account object and then print the value of the ID. Right. You see here, I'm trying to print the ID, and it gives you like 001. So I was telling you like account will have the prefix, right? So this is the ID that is trying to print here. It's 001, 0011, and this is the ID that is generated. Now, if you go to the Salesforce page, and I'm going to click on the accounts. So this is the my test account that I created. You can see it in the recent accounts. see it here, this is exactly the data that we gave. My test account, and we gave this phone number. These are the only two pieces that we gave so far. And it is created today at this time, 10:43 or whatever. And then, the account has been created. And then it is not going to display any of our ID here because that's purely the backend. Means it's going to be in the database, what the ID of it and everything. So that's about creating the one single record. Like if you see it here, let me close this log information. So if you see it here, like the entire thing can be done within your method. Like, we already know, how to create a Apex class, right? The last class, last training, last we just created that training, training test one of the class, and then we are just doing all sort of manipulations and updating or updating the return type changes and everything. So you can write the entire code here, and then you can call it. That's why I just directly wrote over there. I'm going to just write this here. I can just make it white here. I'm not going to return anything. And then my test account one, I would say. Okay, I'll just make it just 231 phone number here. And I'm going to fill in some additional data like number of employees. We had one of the things that I can remember is the number of employees, right? So this is integer. So I don't have to specify any of the single quotes. Only the string will be in the quotes. Otherwise, it's just going to be an integer. I don't have to specify anything within the quotes. All right. So I'm trying to exit here. This is a static, so I don't even need to create an object. So it's like training test one dot print data. See, whenever you write this print is coming, you're not going to pass any value here. You don't have to pass anything. Or if you're going to pass the data, then you can replace the data with this name. But for now, I'm just going to pass it empty and make sure that I save it here. Save the data. Okay. Then just in case if you want to have it. Right. So if you see here, instead of writing in the anonymous, I just wrote the exact same code within this method, and then I'm calling it some object, which should technically work when we execute this. Right. All right. The previous method I just wrote it so you see here it gives the new record. The record ID is printed, and you can see that it started with 0011. So that is how you write a simple piece of code. Now we started writing. We went to the next level or next step of writing a code to manipulate the data. Okay. Now this is just one single record. The next step is we'll be doing how are we going to do the bulk upload or bulk loader with or how can we do that? How can we execute this in the bulk? So that will be the next step. What kind of bulk? How can we write the bulk DML operations? Any questions so far? You can type it in the chat window. Be able to follow me. All right. All right. So So now the next thing that we're going to see is like, we were inserting the only one DML statement, right? Now you can perform the DML operation in the list of objects. So why are we doing? Why do we even do the bulk operation? One of the things is like, it's always recommended to do it in the bulk when you have like larger number of data sets, because it is going to help us avoid hitting the database. Like every time when you want to just, this is like, this is creating like one record, again, hit the database side. How about if you just collect a bunch of data and then insert everything at one time? In that case, you are hitting the database once and then you are telling that, hey, these are the data that needs to be inserted, right? So that is what we need to, so we are having some concept of called the governor limit in the DML. So there is a limit, like, there is a limit that you can do the operations when you're doing the bulk, like every single time when you are inserting the records or you are doing the DML operation, the Salesforce has the governor limit, like 150 statements per FX transaction. You can have like, so this just popped up in my mind, like, you'll be having a governor limit. The Salesforce has a governor limit of 150 statements can be executed per FX transaction. In one transaction, you can do like 150 statements. But when you say like 150 statements, you are doing this transaction, right? The statements just include like like insert, update, or whatever the statements that you perform against your objects. So those are called the statements, and you can have like 150 as a governor limits. That's what the Salesforce recommends, and this is one of the certification questions that usually comes, like, what is the governor limit? They'll give so many numbers and it will be like 150, because you have to pay attention here to learn, like, how many statements is available, like, it's allowed as a limit in the Salesforce. I mean, basically, why is that? Why are they limiting is, like, just to make sure that the Salesforce is not going to be. I mean, it's hosted in the cloud, and it has to have like access to the different platforms. Like, we don't have to hit the database very hard and then make it busier, or like, it will hang one part of time if you just give, like, too much load. So that is why they're setting up the limits. Like, you can manipulate the objects with some limits. Okay. So whenever we are doing the DML operations in bulk, so whenever we are creating a list of objects, so each object is like, whenever we are creating a list object, right? Each object comes as like, one DML statement. Okay. All right. So let's go and do some the same thing, like, let's insert the records, like, account records in the bulk. Okay, now we have inserted one. Now let's do it in the bulk, and then once you get the ID, with that ID you can do the update, or you can just get the ID and you can do the update. That's called the upstart. You can do the upstart. So we'll just slowly get advanced to the DML operations, because this is one of the key concepts for FX programming. Because, in Salesforce, what do? We create the objects, we create fields, and then we manipulate the data. We load the data, we retrieve the data, we process the data, we generate the report. And the one of the key things that I took, like, the very next session of, like, the basic thing of data type is like the DML. Because that's always I prefer to teach my students, because whenever you do all of this, like, other than the customization, everything is going to be involved with the data manipulation. So that's what you need to know, like, how to target the object, how to insert the data, how to retrieve the data, how to delete, how to update, how to upsert, like, all the things, like, you can do with the data with respect to the object. That is applicable for both the standard object as well as the custom object. You know what are the objects that is available, and you can go, from the object manager, you can go and see what are the fields that are available, and based on the fields, you know how to manipulate the data. I also gave you like a couple of real-time scenarios. Like, you not necessarily have to use the bulk uploader. You can use the bulk uploader when you have the formatted data in the format of CSV, spreadsheet, whatever. But what happens if it is in the format of XML? Or even think about this scenario, like, a behavior scenario. Like whenever the Salesforce users, right, the Salesforce users, we have like thousands of people in the corporate company. And whenever they log in that home dashboard, they want to see the news items. Like, if you go to this Salesforce here, the sales home, right? If you go to the home, they want to see these news items here. News items related to the accounts what they manage. Like, I might be a sales engineer and I'm the Salesforce user. And I don't want to see the account from Akshat or Pratap. Like, they may be having their own account. If I'm not part of those accounts, it doesn't make any sense for me to get the news items from their account, because I'm not going to read those news. But since I'm having this one of the accounts, like if you see here, I have like the 3M is one of my accounts, and so I'm putting the news. If you see this, these news items are coming dynamically, and these are not literally from spreadsheet or from XML, or the source is coming directly from the over the wire. When I say wire, it's like a over the HTTP web service protocol. So you can give a call to that service, like web service, and then you can fetch the data, and then you can create your own record in your Salesforce. So what I'm trying to get here is, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it manually as admin does, or you have to have some source of truth in your physical file, like, like spreadsheet or XML. It doesn't be like, it doesn't need to be in that way. It could be on the fly. You can get it from your HTTP protocol, or like, calling the web service, getting the source from somewhere else over the internet, and then creating the data in the Salesforce. You understand what I mean? So you call the web service, you pass a parameter, like in a parameter instance. In this case, like, I'll be passing a parameter of, hey, I'm calling the news URL, and then I'm passing this company ID, or like, the company name. Hey, give me the news, like, whatever they support. Hey, give me the news of, like even it could be the stock market, right? You call the Nasdaq stock market and you pass your ticker ID, like, for example, like Apple, APL, like, you just pass this and then get this information, or get their stock code, or what is their performance today in the market. So all those things, like, you get this news, and then you can create your data in the Salesforce, which means that you're not having any of the physically stored device, or like, file systems with the source of truth. You are getting it on the fly over the web service call. So in similar way you can do. So in those cases, you'll be just doing either like, the bulk operation, right? You're getting a collection of news, and then you're creating it. So those kind of things you can do. So these are the real-time scenarios that I explained, like, where we'll be doing these kind of manipulations to insert the data. All right. So now let's try to create the DML operations in the bulk. So were you guys with me so far? Were you able to follow me?
Yes, yes, Karthik.
Okay. So are you guys okay to have the flow of the sessions going this way, or like, am I too fast?
Yeah, no, it's correct. It's correct. According to me,
Okay.
I don't know about Akshat. Yeah.
Akshat, how about Akshat? Because the reason is, like, I don't
Yeah,
want to take too much. Yeah, okay, cool. I just don't want to take too much of time talking about the same thing, or like, talking very basic things for next 3-4 classes. So I just want to take you guys to the advanced thing. So, like, how to. Okay. So have you guys ever done like this kind of coding to insert the data?
Yeah,
yes, Karthik, I have done.
Okay, cool. So so Pratap, if you haven't done, I really wanted to, like, go through some hands-on, and then, create your own object, or like, the standard objects, pick a couple of objects, and then try to insert the data, and then see, so that you give you the confidence of manipulating the data. Okay.
yeah, yes, yeah.
So when we're talking about right. So when we're talking about this, like creating the data in a bulk, like okay. So either we are going to have we are going to create a list of objects, right? We have to have a list of objects to do the bulk BML operation. Okay. So how do we do that? We need to create a list object. So and then we need to pump the data, load the data in the list, and then we have to make that we have to insert that list. So very simple. Okay, no big deal. All right. So for that, let's start off with creating the list. Like, let me let me use the same uh, same same type of pattern. I'll just create a list. So that's the first step it's going to be. Okay. All right. So in this, I'm going to create an account. Okay. So we're creating the account, list account, right? All right. So what this line tells us, like, you are creating the list. What type of list? What is the data that that list can hold, right? This list can hold a data of S object of type account. Okay. This list can hold the S object of type account. Okay. I'm creating the list and the new list of accounts. Okay. Cool. All right. So this is how we declare the object. When you want to have, like, when you want to insert the record to it, like, okay, the same thing. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a new account, my test account. Two, we'll just for differentiating, we'll just start with 2 to 1. Okay. And then I'm going to have another record created. Or like 5 records. Let me say like 5 records. 2, 3, 4. Let's create like 4 records. All right. So if you see here, this is the curly braces that we're going to construct the list. The list name is account list, and it's going to have a subject account. Okay, and this is the individual records of the account. We are not ending the statement, so it is going to be a comma here. It's just going to say like it is going to have like 4 records. It's going to be like 4 records, and then we are going to complete the statement here. Going to complete the statement here. Okay. Now we see here, I have just plainly written like so let's differentiate this with like 331. This is like 441. This is like 551, an example. And then 2, this is 3, 4, and this is 5. Okay. All right. The next thing is like, so this is like creating a list. We created a list, and then with the list, we created a object. These are like, each individual record of the new account. Okay. All right. The next thing is we want to insert the list. All you need to do is like, bulk insert. This is like bulk insert. What do we do is we write insert, and then what is the list name? This is like account list. So let me remove all of this. And then, yes, we're trying to execute this, okay? So say for example, we are trying to insert the list, right? If you want to print, the list, or like say for example, whoever has like name as account 2, account 4, for example, whoever has the name as account 4, I want to update this particular record to have the number of employees as 200. Like only this account is going to have this account 200. Like in the real time, this could be like account could be like like Google or Apple or whatever the account name. This is going to have, we are going to update one of the fields. The bottom line is, okay, we are going to insert the 4 records, and out of which after it inserts, we are going to retrieve the data and then check, okay, which account has has the name as account 4, and then we are going to update the respective, or we are going to update the record with the respective field called number of employees. Meaning we want to update based on the name. We want to update the field number of employees to 200. First we insert with 100, and then we need to update with 200 based on the condition, like it has to have a name like 200. We'll also try to do that. So we cover this update here. Okay. So this is going to insert the list. All right. So what we are going to do is like okay. So this is the bulk operation. So we have the list. Now we need to do is like okay. So we have this. We have inserted the record list. Now we need to hold a list to update the record. Okay. So create like we are going to create like another list. Create another list to update the existing records. Create another list to update the existing records. Okay. So I'm going to have like list account Sfdc update list. So this is the update list I'm having. Okay. Equal to new list of account. Okay. So all right. So this is how we declare the list, update list, the new list that holds an account. Okay. All right. So after that, what we're going to do is, now we know that this is the list that got inserted, right? We are going to loop the list that got inserted. We need to loop the list that got inserted. What is the list that we inserted? This is the list that we inserted, right? Okay. So in that case, we did not specifically do any kind of exercises for this conditional statement for or anything, but you can literally see it here. Like we'll write some for loops here so that you can go through the loops also. Okay. For this is an account. And then we are going to iterate this list. This is the list to be iterated. Okay. So we're going to iterate this list, or this list is of type account, and then this list has the bunch of account inside. So that's what it is. This list has going to have an account, and this has the data, and we already inserted. Now we are iterating the list. This is what it was. Okay. So now we are checking like if account if account dot right name. So it gives that's why the cool feature of Salesforce, like it gives like Eclipse, it gives all this data, like what is the field and everything. Okay. If account dot field account name, the field name is name, right? And equal to, we are saying like my test account. So, okay. If it is 4, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just update only this list, or like this object. Sorry, I'm going to update only this object. account dot number of employees. It has a lot of fields. Okay, it has the number of employees equal to 200. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to update only this record to have the number of employees equal to 200. After I inserted, I'm updating here the same piece of code, the same test program, like we are doing it. Then what we need to do is we need to have this. So this is the loop that ends here. Okay, this is a simple if condition that ends here. Okay, we are just going to update only that, and then this object, right? So this list. This list dot add. I'm going to add this object. I'm adding the object to the list here. Okay. And then what I'm trying to do is I'm going to do the bulk update of in one call. Okay, this is the for statement, and here's the if and this is the for. After this, I'm going to do the bulk update of accounts. Bulk update of accounts. Okay. With the DML call. How do we do that? Update. It's nothing but the same thing like insert. We have to do the update. Now what we are going to do is we have to update this list. We're going to update this list. Okay. All right. You see here, we created a list, account list, and then all these 4 records. We have it here, and it gets inserted. So this covers the bulk. We are doing the bulk insert. The next thing is we are thinking that, oh, okay, we need to update the account which has account name equal to 4, right? And then you could ask like, hey, Sathik, why do we want to create a list? Instead, you could just create like, only one record. Well, we could do that. But here it is going to identify, for example, whatever this list has, like, this list, whatever it has, like, when we are iterating, what if this has like, 2 accounts for, like, what if this is the scenario? In this case, we have to have the list, right? Because we have two accounts which has the name of account, my account 4. So in that case, like both these accounts will be updated with the field of 200. Okay, it's like just giving you an example of how to do the bulk operation. That's all. And then it is going to iterate through this, and then we are going to get this. We are adding to this list, and then we are continuing. Okay. Here, after it gets updated, this list, right, and you can even try to print system.debug. You can try to print and see if it is printing the ID. Account ID. All we need is just this account. Dot ID. Right? This is what the data type is going to be. This is what the field. This is what the field name is. ID. Okay. That is going to give us that's going to print the ID. So we know that we are going to insert all these 4 records, and we are going to get each of the IDs, and then whoever has this account 4, that will get updated to 200, and then we are going to do the update list. Update. We are saving it in another object, and then we are using the update command, or like update DML statement to update the list. All right. With this, we are going to do the bulk insert and bulk update. We inserted on update. Okay. Hope this is clear. I'm going to execute this, okay? Just going to execute with this debug. I'm not going to change the name at all. It's all going to be the print data. It doesn't make any sense when I'm trying to change the name, change the method name or anything. Okay? I'm going to just execute with this. All right. Let's see. Yes. You can see here, like it has created and then it got inserted and updated successfully. Right? All right. Now let's take a look at let's go to Salesforce. So if you see here, these are the recent records, right? The recent records. You see, like the my test account. I need to add this field and then get it sorted. So I don't have this field here to get it sorted, which is fine. All right. So if you see here, all of these my account 4, my test account 4, all of these are created, right? So what did we do? Like we were creating these accounts, and then when you are trying to click on this my account, my test account 3, you see this employee here 100. Whereas when you're trying to see like there are like 2 accounts which has my test account 4. Basically, just duplicate it here, which is fine. We see this employee has 2, employee has 200. So basically, we updated. We were having like 2 records with the same name as my test account 4. So if you just go and click through that and see, we got updated with the number of employees field. That's the 200. So that is what our update statement does. Initially, we started off with 100, and then we just inserted it with 200. With this, like we are going to see this. The reason in the debug statement, when I'm trying to execute, we got only 2 IDs. The reason being that we're trying to print it inside this. So if you see this conditional statement, account.name my test account was applicable for only these 2 accounts that we inserted. So that is why we got only 2 accounts that are printed with ID. Okay, and then it got updated. So this is clear with the bulk, like we try to insert it with a single record and then the bulk insert and then the bulk upload, bulk update and all that. All right. So the next set of things is like basically what you will do is like the similar thing like what we're doing is insert and update. Will also do the upsert. Like upsert is like it is just going to insert the object and then it is going to update the object. Okay, so we have like a piece of code to insert and then and then to do the update. Okay, all right. We can even test the upsert. All right. So let's try with different object now. Let's try with some contact object. Okay, so that let's switch the object. We have been doing this with the account object. Let's try to do the upsert object. Once we do the upsert object, then I'll show you like what are the SQL queries, like how do you write the SQL queries. So with that we'll wind up today's session, and then we'll discuss more in the next class. All right. So now we are going to talk about the upsert. As I said, like it's going to be like insert and then the update, right? All right. So first, let's go and create one contact to insert, okay? And then it will have its ID. We will use that ID. We'll use that ID, and then and then we'll match with the upsert, okay? So we'll use that ID to match with the upsert, okay? Meaning, I'll teach you here. The little example for that search here. Okay. If you want to start there, let's see. Save it here. Just chat with you later. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are going to just try to do the upsert. Right. Let's try the piece of code to see like how the upsert works. Right. So now let's switch the object. We have been doing a lot of things with the account. Let's do with the contact now. Contact. For example, like let's have let's create one contact. And then on the contact field has like the first name, last name, department, something like that. Go to here, go to next class. I'll talk to you more about the SQL queries, and this is the Apex class, right? We have been dealing with Apex classes and all that, and the objects and everything. Next class we'll be talking more about the triggers. Okay, that's what the more important is. Like you can see here, we have been dealing now with Apex class, right? Then I'll talk about, because we have to switch to the Lightning. I'll teach you about like Apex Tracker, and then we'll go through this Visual Force page and the Visual Force component. We'll cover this also to make sure that you get the idea of the Apex class trigger, Visual Force, and all these things. And then we'll have to switch to the Lightning. Correct. So this is a contact object, right? So we go to the contact object. This is the field and relationships, and you can see what are the field names. Remember, we used to have like first name, last name. I just want to make sure that I write the right column. Or email. Okay. Okay. Name, email. Okay, cool. All right. Do we have the department here? Do we have a department? Okay. Name. All right. And we have the title department. So we'll go with this. All right. So contact equal to new contact. I'm creating a new contact with the name. I'll start off with like just two two fields. Okay. Department equal to something like finance. And then, so we're going to insert here. Insert the object action. I always recommend to start with the lowercase. First name, I gave that a click. Let's start it obviously to have it. That's the naming convention we need to follow in any language. It could be Java or like even Salesforce the same. Whenever we declare the object. Also, whenever though it is case insensitive, it's always recommended to have, even when you see it, my class always starts with uppercase, the camel case. So I forgot to tell you this thing. Like whenever you create a class, the always recommended thing is to have the uppercase, the capital, or like camel case or anything. The same thing like whenever you write a method, you just write it with the lowercase. And if you want to have like two words, like print data kind of thing, then it goes to the uppercase, like print data. And this is the universal the naming convention, right? So what this does is like this inserts the akshat record. We inserted a record. This will insert a record. All right. Next one is like as now, now the record Akshat will have its own ID, right? So we'll be using that to match the record for the upsert, right? So now let's say like this record Akshat dot description, for example. We're going to update the descriptions. So the record has been updated. By upsert. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create another contact. Okay. We're going to do is create another contact. Like we're going to create a contact object, contact. Let's say let's start an example. And the Pratap belongs to the department like finance or like let's say like HR, for example. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hold a list to do the upsert operation. So we have to either do the record or we have to do it in the list, right? For the upsert, like same thing what we did here, like we inserted the list to the insert and we used the list. We created another list and then we were able to do the DML of update. Similarly, we are going to hold the list. Create a list to perform upsert. So this is the list that is going to have a contact, two contact objects. One is Akshat and the other one is Pratap. I have it here, Pratap as the new contact. Here it is. So I will type over here. And the first object is Akshat. I have it here, Akshat. So this one we already inserted the Akshat here, but Pratap is not yet inserted. We just created an object. That's all we did. Okay, and we're having the Pratap here. Okay, but Pratap belongs to the Pratap is created with the department of HR. Okay, if you see here, the way the upsert is, upsert does the insert as well as as well as the update, right? So as I said, here if you see here, in this case, Akshat is already created, right? In this case, Akshat will be updated because it is already created here, so it will be updated. Whereas Pratap, we don't have the record in the database of Pratap. Pratap will be created. So Pratap performs the operation of insert, whereas Akshat is already inserted, so it will perform the operation of update. So that's why I put update insert. It's called the upsert. So you can see Akshat will be updated and Pratap will be created. All right. So is it clear? If you have any questions, just type in the chat. If you have a question. in case if you have any questions with this upsert. So we have gone through this insert, we have gone through the update. Now the next step is gone through the upsert. Okay. We'll go through this merge, like only two more things, right? Merge and delete is clear, like we can delete with ID and undelete. We'll quickly go through that later, and then we'll just move on to the SQL in detail. All right. Now you can see here, I haven't used the statement called insert Pratap. We haven't used. We are inserting only action. We don't have any Pratap here to insert. So that is why it proves like what the upsert does. Upsert just both the insert as well as the update. Okay. If it is there, it will update. If it is not there, it will insert. So that is what the operation, or that is what the statement is called upsert. Right. Let's execute this. Oh, it is not right. Oh, okay, we used the name right. Okay, so try with this first name here. Required field is missing the last name. Oh, okay. I need to have the last name as well. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not typing it somewhere or I'm not copying it from the existing one. So that's why these things happen. Because we are just going on the flow, right? Right. The last name, because I don't have a last name, so I'll just put it up. Okay. Right. First name, last name, department. Okay. Then we're using the upsert. Let's see. Perfect. Okay, no errors. There we go. Now, if you go to the Salesforce and say that, here, Akshar streams that got created, and we did not use insert at all. So it does the insert automatically using the upsert. So which means that it just again if you use the upsert in the list, if it is there, it is going to update. If it is not there, it is going to insert. So that's what the upsert statement is all about. Does it make sense? Is it all clear? So for whatever we have gone through this, right? So one of the things that I want to share with you is like quickly, if you want to just write any of the we have we have two types of uh, things in the Salesforce. So one is called so let me go here. It's like upset. So while we are doing the DML, data manipulation language, we should be able to just query, like what is the query? Like we query the data. We query the data from the database, right? That's what it's called query. So what is the normal database that we all know? Like Oracle, which is more familiar, MySQL, SQL Server, and similarly, where the data is all stored in Salesforce. It still is stored in the database called Salesforce. Salesforce stores its data in the database. Okay, but how do we query the data? Like we used to call it a SQL, right? SQL is like it's a query language to fetch the data. Whereas what we call it in Salesforce is SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language. Okay. And SOSL called Salesforce Object Search Language. Excuse me. So we'll go through this detail in the next class about SOQL and SOSL. Okay. How to query from the database, and you can write a query in your code to execute. So basically, what do we do the data? Now all we did was we injected the data into the database. We updated the data in the database, the SQL in the Salesforce database. So next class, in next session, we'll start off with what is the SQL, how do we write the SQL statement in Salesforce, how we can utilize the SQL query in your Apex code to get the data. Because with the DML, you cannot do the select, or you cannot fetch the data. All you can do is you can only insert, update, delete, meaning you can only push the data to the database or pump the data, or you can update the data. All these things are you're manipulating the data. Whereas the query is just fetching the data, you're getting the data, you are retrieving the data from the database. You cannot do it with the DML. That's not something like a data manipulation. The next class we will just go through exercises of how to do the merge, and we'll spend few minutes for delete, and then we'll go through this SOQL and SOSL. Okay, search language and the query language, and how to use those query language into your Apex program to retrieve the data and then to get the data. Okay, so these things we will cover, and then we'll move forward with the Apex triggers and how the triggers will be created, where the Apex triggers will be used, and then we will go to the Visual Force of how to create a Visual Force page, how we can create your own buttons, or how to create your own components in the Visual Force page, how you can call the Apex trigger from the Visual Force page, customized page, and all this. Okay. Any questions so far? Hope you like the session that I'm taking. Let me know if you have any questions, or if you want to take the class in a different direction, just let me know. If I want to slow it down, or if I want to teach something in a different way, just let me know, so that you guys can follow me, or you can make use of the class.
Nothing from my side, Karthik.
Okay.
Nothing from my side too, Karthik.
Okay, cool. So I really want you both to just to go through this some hands-on exercises. I know that you might be familiar as well already, but just to get the practice, you just create a couple of objects, or we can manipulate the data, we can retrieve the data, and we can see how it works, and then we move forward with the session. Okay. So the next class I'll be taking a SOQL SSL language with the merge, delete, and then Apex triggers. So this thing we'll cover in the next class. So I'm just, since you are already familiar with admin and all those things, I'm just taking a little fast track, so that I'm getting it advanced a little faster, just capturing all those concepts and then moving a little bit faster. Okay, I just want to let you know that. In case if I want to slow down, just let me know. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great day. All right. Good night.
Okay. Bye bye.